Hey, this is Evo Bluestein. I'm reading from my new book, Wind Blowing Across a Field, a collection of interviews with musicians subtitled Wisdom and Tales from 23 Musicians. And it's sold on Amazon and also from my website, evobluestein.com. A series of interviews with musicians like Peggy Seeger and Joe Craven and Kevin Burke and Peter Alsop and Richard Hagopian and Byron Berline. And I'll read a little bit from the Byron Berline story. Let me let the dog out. Come on, girls, come out. We're reading a story. Okay, so from my book. This is the great bluegrass fiddler, the late great Byron Berline. He says, "We lived on a farm in Oklahoma right across the Kansas-Oklahoma line. Caldwell was the nearest hospital and we got our mail there. My dad was an old-time fiddler. You just learned from the people around in the neighborhood. There was no radio to listen to. When the radio came in, he picked up what he could. My dad taught me the tunes that he knew. I went to high school in Caldwell. I learned to fiddle I learned to fiddle note for note the way my dad played. Then I met the Texas fiddlers when I was 16. Eck Robertson, the first fiddler to play for RCA. Major Louis Franklin, the Solomon Brothers. That changed my whole life. I noticed myself playing a little differently. My dad and I were at the Newport Folk Festival, and Charlie Foreau with County Records came up to my dad and asked, "Are there any fiddlers in your area that I could record?" "Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them." We gave them all their names and they went down and recorded them. My ancestors were from Germany on my dad's side. They settled in Illinois, and then my grandfather did the land run in 1893 in Oklahoma, all farmers. My dad learned from the neighbors and took lessons from an old black man from Caldwell, Kansas. He was 19 when he picked up the fiddle. He was playing banjo before that, and he told me one day his dad said, "Lou, if you want to amount to anything, you need to get yourself a fiddle." He did, and sure enough, he was a popular man in the neighborhood. Frank Mitchell, a good friend of my dad's, was a very good player with a great tone. I listened to him a lot, as he and my dad had made recordings on some discs, and I would play them over and over. Then I would try to find any fiddle playing on record, and the only ones I could find at the time were Tommy Jackson and Howdy Forrester. I could listen to those guys. Essentially, you listened to everybody you could. Eventually, I heard bluegrass and was really enamored with that. When I went to college at Oklahoma University in 1962, folk music was really popular on college campuses. We had a program every Friday at 4 p.m. in the Student Union. It was a folk music show, mainly for students. If you wanted to be on that show, you had to audition. I auditioned. I hardly knew anyone there. I went there on a football scholarship. I ended up in track and had a lot more time. I broke a thumb and couldn't play fiddle for 6 weeks. My dad was so afraid I would hurt my fingers. I understand now. When you're young, you don't care. I did the Friday 4 show, November 22nd, 1963, the day President Kennedy was shot. On that show, there was a group called the Dillards. On Andy Griffith's TV show, they were the Darlings. A lot of people recognized them from that. They changed my whole life. I only played fiddle tunes at that point. I remember meeting Doug Dillard right before he went on. Someone said, "You need to hear him play fiddle." Doug said, "Oh, you play fiddle? Do you play old-time tunes?" "That's all I know how to play. I want to hear you play when we finish." Well, the rest is sort of history. I'm not going to read any more right now, but I hope you'll check out this book on Amazon, Wind Blowing Across a Field. It's a great collection of interviews, and we'll do more readings another time. Thanks for listening.